First, it was Pettit. Then came Latimer. Wisconsin just dropped a recruiting combo punch that would make Mike Tyson blush. A Florida speedster and a Georgia bruiser, both 4 stars, both headed to Madison. If this is what the 2026 class looks like in June, buckle up, folks. I'm Rajiv. He's Justin. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective. Woo-hoo! Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together on a Sunday evening to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. On today's show, it was a bit of a dream week for Wisconsin. After a bit of a summer lull, the Badgers lit up the recruiting trail with back-to-back blue-chip commitments that have the 2026 class trending up. First came Jayden Pettit, a smooth, explosive wide receiver out of Florida who brings serious playmaking ability to the table. Then just days later, Amari Latimer, a powerful 4-star running back from Georgia, jumped on board, giving Wisconsin a dynamic duo that could headline Jeff Grimes' offense for years to come. We'll break down what each brings to the field, how they fit into the system, and what this surge says about Wisconsin's evolving 2026 class. A little over a week ago, the University of Wisconsin officially filed a lawsuit against Miami, accusing the Hurricanes of tampering in the transfer recruitment of defensive back Xavier Lucas. It's a bold and unprecedented move that could have major ripple effects across the NCAA, NIL, and the transfer portal landscape. We'll get into the details of the case, what it means for Wisconsin, and why I have never been more proud of my alma mater. You can find our show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you all for your continued support of the show. Quick couple things. You did not see the Alabama Know Your Foe last week. I did create it, but I was on a boat and I thought I would have the ability to post that. I wasn't able to, so I wasn't able to edit it all together. It will drop this week. We will double up probably the following week on Maryland, maybe Iowa, but you're still going to get them all. That series has come across really nicely so far, and we're going to continue to invite people on. We had Alex from the Bama Factor. He's going to be the one that's showing on this week's Wednesday episode of Know Your Foe, which is great. So sorry about that. Justin, I'm back from Alaska. It's really hot in Vegas, and it was really nice in Alaska. I got to see some ice, some glaciers. How are you doing, man? I feel like I've been away for a long time.
I'm doing all right. It's good to have you back, man. It's been lonely here, and then Nick helping me hold down the fort. We had a good show, I thought, this last week. I like having him on. Hopefully we can get him back on here again soon. We gotta steal him away, as it seems like he's getting more and more popular. So yeah,
there's no surprise that Nick Osen, a good friend of the show, he's only going to keep growing his career. He's doing good work at Badger 247. Bo Dragon, the Colts suck. I know they do. I'm with you, Bo.
Dragons, Bo.
Listen, Bo, I totally know they suck. I'm wearing a Colts shirt if you're listening on the podcast. But I don't care because I still love the Colts. I am not we're not good. Listen, when Daniel Jones is your starting quarterback, it's not a good thing. Or Anthony Richardson.
It really isn't.
Not good at all. KPB, Kevin Brown, Nick and Justin were great while Rajiv was gone. Heck yeah. Tyler Schreiber, we got 2 studs when Rajiv was gone. Take more Alaska trips. Come on, Tyler. Jeez.
We'll make Rajiv feel better. It's when Justin's AC goes out, and then we start getting popular players.
Yeah, it was good. But listen, it was a good week for Wisconsin. Really good week. Jaden Pettit, listen, it was really a struggle because I'm on the boat. I'm getting random updates. Every now and again, like 40 text messages will pop through that I'm on. Justin and Ryan and I share a text thread. It'll be all these messages. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? I go to ESPN. I go to 247. Can't find anything because I don't have the internet. And it just was brutal.
I need to find our text string right here real quick. I'm going to see if I can find it.
It's horrible.
There was something on here where I mentioned Pettit and you're like, Pettit? What?
When did that happen? But listen, Jaden Pettit, 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver out of St. John Newman in Naples, Florida. We were battling with a lot of big schools for this one, Justin. You and I love this guy, Jaden Pettit. What a talent. I mean, we've shown you guys this film. Go to huddle.com, check it out. He is a long wide receiver. He's got elite abilities. I mean, I just think we said, and we talked about this a lot, Justin, this is the guy that Ohio State, this is the guy that like Oklahoma, this is the kind of guy that they get. This is one of those talents that you're like, wow, the ceiling is monstrous. I mean, tell me, we talked about it before, but let's talk about it now because he's ours. What do you like about this guy?
Yeah, I think let's break down what he's not right away first, because I think there's going to be people that are like, well, he's not a 4.3 guy or a 4.4 guy. No, he's not. He's a guy that I think will probably end up in the mid 4.5s by the time all's said and done with him. But he's a guy who's really explosive for that size. And that's a problem when you look at it because he really chews up ground with his stride. He's a big-time long strider, and he's a guy who has, in my opinion, top-end body control and the ability to go up and be strong and attack the football. And the issue here is you have a guy at 6'4" who is only going to get bigger and stronger. Most corners are going to top out at 6'1". He's going to have 3 inches in height and probably closer to 5 by the time you take into account his arms, where he's going to have the ability to just get up there more consistently and get higher and stronger than any of the corners that are going against him. So he doesn't have to have elite top-end speed because he's going to be able to go up there even when guys are close and create separation with his body and his ability to just be bigger and longer than the guys that are going to be covering him.
Yeah, you mentioned it, like the length of the catch radius that he has. The very smooth route runner. You mentioned it, you and I were talking before the show, he just settles into zones really well. He's got such a good head on his shoulders. And when you have a guy that's 6'4" and is already 200 pounds, right? This frame is really there. What is the upside of this guy? It's incredible. Like, he just has so many attributes that you want in a receiver. When you look at Eugene Hilton, you look at guys like Trash Kakahuna, two people that we've been very excited about over the last couple of years. I'm more excited about Jaden Pettit than I am about either of those two. Now, I love Eugene Hilton, you know this, and we love Trash Kakahuna, but I just feel like there's something physically very different about what Pettit brings. And obviously, I got a couple things on Twitter today that were like, well, but can we keep him? I think this is a very fair point. I understand, like, you have to get excited about this, but you don't know, like, who knows what's going to happen. As he's going to have play a senior year, and if he's going to have a big of a senior year as we expect, a lot of schools are going to be after him.
Given the amount of thought that this kid put into this, and I think that he put a lot of thought into it, unless there's somebody new that comes along, I'm not sure I see us losing him. I don't think we'll lose him to the teams that are already out there, because I think he's kind of like the only one I think you could legitimately truly make an argument for would probably be Oklahoma. And we'll see how much they stay on him, if they do even at all. But he clearly doesn't care about Miami, or he would have stuck there. Florida was trying to get him to come in for a visit in the fall. We'll see what happens there. But right now, Wisconsin just has to be concerned with taking care of their business. You need to go on the field and you need to show that you're headed in the right direction. And that will help with all these guys to hold on to, because these kids want to play for a school that they're going to be competitive. And if it looks like things are trending in the right direction offensively and he feels like it, I actually think this is a really good offense for him. Like, he's going to have the ability to get over the top and to do some things attacking downfield. And I think he's going to be able to run a decent route tree, which is really going to help his NFL prospects.
Mike D says Pettit will be great in the red zone with the length and big playability. Any other questions you guys have or things you want us to talk about, put it in the chat. Tyler Schieber, we see your comment. We started. We're going to get to it when we get to our questions section. That's definitely a good note to talk about. Okay, so Justin, let's say this. Like, I know you're good at Badger comps. Tell me who you feel like Pettit comps to, as far as whether it's someone, recent or in the past, or even potentially an NFL guy. Like, who do you feel like he most looks like?
Ryan and I kind of both looked at him as kind of like a bigger version of Toon. I think he kind of fits that Nick Toon profile. I think he's a little more refined than Toon was coming in, which is why I think he'll play a little bit earlier. I do think that he's going to be, by the time he's all said and done with him, he's going to be a little more explosive than what Toon was. Toon got a little bit quicker when he's in the pros, but he wasn't he wasn't a guy that I looked at and thought really chewed up ground and got away from people in college. Like, corners could stay with him. He was just bigger than them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pettit's going to have a chance to run away from people at times.
And that's it, right? It's like, we talk about the route running of a guy like Hilton, and certainly in this class. We talk about the yards after catch ability and explosiveness of a Tretch in the previous class. this sort of combines. I'm not saying he's a combination of those two players specifically, but it's the skill set of being able to have that elite route running and get open and catch the ball over pretty much any cornerback, as you mentioned, with his size, but also, as you mentioned, with the speed. Like, the guy's the yak potential is massive with this guy. He really can be a big play wide receiver, but also someone who you rely on in the red zone, rely on third down situations, moving the sticks down the field. Like, he really has all those attributes. And I have to tell you, I'm a little shocked about all this. Like, that's why when I wasn't following it in real time, and then I saw this, like, what the heck just happened? Like, I felt I liked Zach Washington. I thought we were going to get Zach Washington. And we talked about how the fact that, well, like, clearly Washington isn't going to come here. Obviously, went to Michigan State. But it was almost as if, like, well, if we get Pettit, then it's okay that we didn't get Washington. And they actually came through. And that's pretty impressive that they delivered on that.
So, by the way, I'm going to say this just in case Jayden is listening or listens to any of these podcasts where he gets discussed. If we're saying your last name incorrectly, we apologize. If it's Petit,
I'm sorry.
Is Ryan Petit? I don't know if it's Petit or Pettit. It could be either one. Ryan keeps saying Petit, so it might be that. If that's the case, I am sorry in advance. But we like your film, dude. That's all I'm going to say about it.
We need to find out. We'll find out. I'm going to make it a point to find out exactly how it's said. If someone knows for sure, put it in the chat, surely, because we do want to make sure we're saying it right. But yeah, I really, there's so many things I like about this guy, and I really feel like he changes things for us in the positive direction. You know what? I meant to put this up and I totally forgot. Yeah. So is he a guy, Justin, that you think early prediction? Does he play on Sundays? Early, way too early prediction, but just for discussion.
If I'm being honest, I think so. I don't know what that means. I don't want to say he's going to be like a first or second rounder, but I think he's a guy who's going to be, if I'm going to take a guess, I'm going to make a projection on him, say top 4 rounds, and he gets somewhere on somebody's too deep.
Zach Bart's good coming up here. Really like I started, not put it up. There it is. Really like the wide receivers we got since Fit came in, winning back Tretch, Hilton, Pettit, Legree, and his speed. These are guys we normally don't get and see here. Time to develop them and see what they can be. Certainly time to develop, obviously, as we're going to talk more about as the summer progresses. But I think we're going to get into kind of how this shapes up in the whole class. But let's go ahead and talk about the next guy, Amari Latimer. Another one that I was just like, wait a second, what a week. Now if you told me Pettit or Latimer were going to commit, I would have said it was going to be Latimer. Just if we felt like we heard some good things about him. 6 foot, 215 to 220-ish pounds, running back out of Sandy Creek, Tyrone, Georgia. Composite 4-star, another composite 4-star. This guy's a bruiser, man. I mean, he's got all the kind of attributes. We both loved his film. Again, these were two of sort of top guys on our board. Your favorite attributes about Amari Latimer?
He's got a ton of power. I think he's big. He's physical. I like the patience that he shows on his film. I think he's a guy who has a tendency to continue to move forward, but does not just run up the back of his offensive line. He tends to kind of wait his turn until he's got an opportunity in a hole and then explodes. And I think that's like, we talked a lot about him, Ryan and I, on his show after this, when he committed. And I said, he's kind of like what you were getting with Braylon Allen, except I think he's more refined. Like, I think there's some running back attributes that he's a little bit further ahead than Braylon was coming in. And there were people that pushed back that said that, well, Braylon was a linebacker. Well, Braylon played running back in high school too. And he came in as a running back, whether people want to believe it or not. He said he wanted to come in as a running back, and they gave him that option. So I'm not going to lean on that as a reason to say why he wasn't. Latimer's just probably been playing running back far longer in his life. And that's fine.
I heard
his instincts are more locked in.
I heard your show with Ryan. It was a good one, by the way. Go check that out if you haven't heard it. After Latimer committed, you guys talked about the Braylon Allen ceiling. Does he have a Braylon Allen ceiling? And I think you said that he did. You felt that his ceiling was the same as Allen's, and I don't think Ryan agreed with you. I'm not sure, but I agree that he does have that kind of a ceiling. 3 words that I think about when I think about Latimer: burst, athleticism, versatility. And then on top of that, over all that is
underrated in the passing game too.
Correct. I mean, that's the versatility. Like he has defensive film out there that you can watch. I think he played linebacker, right? It was on his defensive back film, defensive film. But he's a big guy. He's a football player. I always talk about that too. He's a football player. He's someone who, again, you see this with Pettit too, and with Latimer. He's got those smarts, right? He just has the ability to read the game, read the holes, like find everything. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I did probably find Estrada's film. I liked Estrada's film a little bit more than Latimer's when we first started looking at both of them.
It's flashier. I mean, it just is because like he's got speed and burst and he's twitchy. So there's a lot of him cutting back and forth. And let's be honest, everything was a 40-yard plus yard touchdown run with him. Like there's like 4 minutes of it, which started literally like, oh, he's what are we looking at here? I mean, while we're literally on this show, I'm sure he scored another touchdown somehow. It's pretty spectacular. But that being said, Latimer is a guy that the more you watch his film, the more you kind of like it. I feel like Will Hanna just says after watching Lat's film again, he has really good feet. He does.
Gregor 715. I like the Earl Campbell comp.
I think the best comp I saw, somebody put it out there yesterday, and I started earlier, was that he reminded them of Frank Gore. And I think that's a really good, because Gore never had elite top end speed, but he's a really physical back, and he was a guy who consistently made positive things happen on the football field. That's kind of what Latimer is. Like Gore had a super long pro career and was a guy who was highly productive, and that was despite multiple injuries. If you get that out of Latimer, like if you get Frank Gore, college Frank Gore out of Latimer, that is a guy who's absolutely a top shelf back. Like that's a guy who can get you competing with anybody in the country.
I agree with you that like he has some of those vibes, but Frank Gore, that is a lofty comparison.
It is. Just
because like you're right, the durability, the longevity of his career, and of course I know he played for the Colts as well, which is great. Tyler Schreiber said kind of get Brian Calhoun vibes.
He played for everybody.
He did. He played for everybody. Tyler Schreiber says kind of get Brian Calhoun vibes from Latimer. I hadn't thought about this, Tyler, until you just mentioned it. Although you already criticized me on the show, so I don't know if I wanted to put any more of your comments up. But I kind of like this comment. I feel like he was a 4.6 guy, Brian Calhoun. I mean, he was not
shiftier though.
Shiftier, yes, but I think the ability to see the holes smaller. A little bit. See the holes a little bit, being a little bit having that burst and athleticism, I think is there. But yes, like I agree, it's a different kind of a back. The reason I like this particular one is because I think Calhoun, better than anybody, now he had played an incredible offensive line in front of him, really knew how to pick the holes and to make, kind of like you said with Frank Gore, make a positive play out of anything. He knew how to find yards. And that is kind of what I see from Amari Latimer. Which is good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Kevin Brown says, hope he's more elusive.
I think the elusiveness is there. The difference is that when you have a guy like Latimer, he's not afraid of contact. And if he thinks that the most productive way to take on a run is to run through somebody, he's not afraid to do that. And that's kind of where it gets tough looking at him, because he's not a guy who's going to sit there and dance. If he sees it and he can get forward, he'll run through somebody to get to where he needs to go, but he's not afraid to make a cut and skip contact too. He's pretty balanced as a running back. He's got a pretty well-rounded skill set.
Kevin Brown says John Clay. What are your thoughts on John Clay? Kind of that type of comp.
Out of high school, John Clay was about as good as it gets for a back. He was a 5-star for a period of time, but had weight and ankle issues at Wisconsin. So it's really hard I think people get hooked on that when they remember him. And I believe Clay had some classroom issues early on in his time in Wisconsin. But from a physical tool standpoint, I think Clay was probably had a little bit higher pedigree, but it's not bad company to be in. I would say if that's what you get out of Latimer, you're excessively happy for what you get, because that guy was was the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year one year.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I will say I was one who was a little bit nervous about where things were with this class, but listen, Amari Latimer is a really good pickup. And what an absolute week that Luke Fickell's had. He continues to surprise people when it comes to off the field stuff as far as recruiting, but on the field, it's a little bit more difficult. We're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show listening on audio. If you're watching on live on YouTube, you won't see anything change here. But a quick break for our friends of the show there. All right. So, Justin, a couple questions here that I wanted that came up. Tyler Schreiber asks, what happens with Atuka now? Likely to transfer?
I don't think so, no. So what I will say on this is I absolutely think that Atuka has a good enough skill set that he can compete with this room, and he just needs to continue to put the work in. Like he can carve out a niche for himself. He could end up jumping one of these guys. He is not a slouch as a running back. And there was a lot of positive comments that were being made about him in the spring. So until Latimer sets foot on campus and proves that he's the real deal, I don't think that you have Atuka going anywhere. And I actually think that he's really serious and committed to the school. So I don't think that will happen. But there's always a chance if things don't play out that way. But I think it's a little early to worry about him leaving at this point.
I would say someone's going to leave. I mean, you've got a plethora of running backs right now, and you've got guys, Justin, that I felt like when you look at Dupree, you look at Jones. I mean, Yakimel's obviously going to be there just one more year. Atuka, now you look at Latimer. I mean, somebody is going to want snaps that they're not going to get. And in this world that we live in with NIL and the changing and the transfer portal and the two opportunities per year, someone's going to leave at some point. I'm not saying it's going to be now. I'm saying that the next transfer window, which isn't until December, right? I think, right?
We don't know what will happen with Yakimelli at this point. Like he could have like a somewhat productive season this year and then decide to go someplace and be the bell cow.
How many years of eligibility does Yakimelli have?
He's got one more year after this. He's a redshirt junior. So there's a chance he runs for say 300-400 yards this year and is productive. And somebody says, we'll give you a starting gig. And I think that's reasonable. If the film is good, there's a chance that could happen. And he's got 1 year left. I don't blame him. If he's got NFL aspirations, I would absolutely take that opportunity to go someplace and show out for a year because he's got some productive film so far. And if he has a year where he goes someplace and runs for 1,200 yards, then he might get an NFL contract out of that.
Yeah, he also has 4.4 speed. Yakimelli does. He was clocked recently. I don't know if it was Brady Collins or someone released some stuff from the university, which was fantastic. Another question, Tyler. Any other questions you guys have? Put it in the chat. We'll get to it. Nick Clayton put on 35 pounds enrolling early, Brady said, and still runs a 4.540. That's insane. Does he make a real impact on the edge for us this year? That's the key thing. It's this year.
I think he's going to play in passing situations. I don't see him being a guy that's going to be an all-around player this year. I just think from a consistency and discipline standpoint, it's asking a lot, and I don't think you need him to be that guy to set the edge for the run. I think if you can get a guy out there who's going to be 275 and going on some of our heavier run sets, I kind of feel better having one of those guys out there that's going to be more consistent and I can trust to be disciplined. The one thing I will say about Clayton, I think he's going to be extremely good by the time he leaves here, is that he is a guy who relies on his athleticism and kind of getting the edge. And he can get out of position a little bit with some of his pass rushing. He's not as bad as some of the people we see. I make the claim. Clay Matthews is like my comparison of this, of guys who at all costs will run around the edge or whatever it takes to try and get around things, even if they're completely giving up contain. You can't afford to have a guy like that in the Big Ten. There's too many teams that run the ball well that will attack that and take advantage of the fact that you're not disciplined enough to stay in your lanes. I think you give Clayton the time and just use him effectively when he's got a full tank of energy and can just come off the edge when you know guys are going to be passing the football.
I think that's one of those things that gets cleaned up, right? By good coaching. I mean, that's those technique issues, some of that positioning stuff will get cleaned up by the coaches. And I think you're right, probably not right away, but there's going to be downs where he can just pin his hair back and go, let's go. Just go get the quarterback. And we're not going to be worried too much about him getting into bad positions because there's just going to be time where we need incredible pass rushing. And he simply has abilities that other guys just don't.
Yeah. He has to be in there on passing downs. He's just his level of speed off the edge. You could put guys who are NFL tackles, like the guys who are going to be going in the draft this next year against him are going to struggle with his speed because it's legit difference making speed. I've talked about some of the twitch with him. Like you see times where he'll jab step and you'll see offensive linemen get completely out of position because they're selling out to try and cut off whatever way he's going. And that's what makes him so difficult. It's why Herbig was so good here. Herbig was roughly in that same ballpark for speed. And he is a guy who he was smaller than Clayton, but tackles really struggled with him because of the fact that they had to cut him off. If he tries, cutting inside, you have to cut that. And if he comes back the other way, you can't stay with him speed-wise. He's too fast. And this is a guy that's even bigger.
Will Hanna says if Clayton isn't in on pass rushing situations on numerous occasions, that's absurd.
It is.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have to see what comes of the other guys, the other outside linebackers and pass rushers. Do we see Reiger? Is he going to be healthy enough to be impactful? That's a big one.
I think Reiger is a legit NFL guy if he's healthy this year.
Correct. And that will hopefully, not hopefully, but that will and should limit any reps we get from Clay. But that's okay because it's perfectly fine. A couple more questions here. Matt Agnew, do you guys think the best case scenario for stacking skill position talent between running back, wide receiver, and QB over the past few years? This is the best case scenario. So are you happy with these positions and how we're stacking them?
I don't know. Over the last 2 years, I would say yes, because I look at it. Well, it's probably you'd have to go 3 years because of the running back room. But the way I look at it, the quarterbacks the last 2 cycles are very high upside guys. I think the floor is a little lower, obviously, with Hopkins, just because I think we need to see more of what his senior film is. And man, the intangibles that you have with Carter Smith are just top shelf. Like that's exactly what you're looking for as a guy who will just kill himself on the field to win. Hopkins could be that too. What I do think we will see is that when you put athleticism in a room, you're giving yourself more lottery tickets effectively to hit on one. And this is where it differs from where we've done in the past. We used to be very heavy on the pocket passer types. Having this level of athleticism just puts so much more pressure on a defense. It just does. When guys roll out of the pocket, you have to worry about the guy taking the free 5 yards. And that's a problem because if you get into 3rd and 4 and you have a quarterback that's capable of running, they put you in a bind because now you have to worry about it playing up with your linebacker and trying to cut that off. And that can open up things in the secondary where now you have a 15-yard pass because the guy who's supposed to be sitting under that receiver and cutting off the passing lane is no longer there because he had to come up and take care of the quarterback. Like that's the great equalizer kind of when you have teams that have the better physical talent is having a quarterback who's super mobile and capable of making plays.
My answer to this question about the best case scenario is yes. I think we've done a fantastic job stacking these positions. I mean, you look at Ryan Hopkins, Carter Smith, you look at Eugene Hilton, Jaden Pettit, you look at, certainly Dupree, Jones, Latimer, like we've done a pretty good job getting solid 4 stars at a lot of these skill positions. Now they have to be developed. We've got to get the linemen to be able to support that. But I think we also feel pretty damn good about our offensive line recruiting. So we're putting together quite a little package here. And a comment I started earlier, which I think is interesting. Tren Sensenig says, who said this class was going to take a back seat to the last 2 classes? Let's start there, Justin, talk about the 26 class a little bit. We've both been fairly critical. We both were concerned. We talked about how things weren't happening fast enough. We canceled Estrada's visit. We lost Washington. Like there were red flags, but then you nail Pettit and Latimer. You get both of them in the same week. And all of a sudden people's heads turn, my head turns, whatever. I saw it because I was out of town. I mean, a lot of good things are coming of it now. How do you feel now about the 26 class? Do you still think it takes a back seat? Do you think it grows? What's your trajectory? How do you feel like it's going to look?
I think it's definitely taken a step in the right direction. What I will say on this is I don't think it's as well-rounded as what we've seen in some of those classes. What I will say from the trenches standpoint, last year's class was about, I mean, obviously I'm partial to 24's offensive line class, but last year's class as a whole from the trenches is about as good as it gets at Wisconsin. I think Drayden Pavey should have been a 4-star by the time he left. I think Akponu is a guy who I look at as a 4-star run stuffer in the middle. Like, I just think he's going to control the line of scrimmage. And I think you look at a guy like Jalen Williams or Sam Lateju that are coming out of that group. I think those are top tier, like, athletic body profiles that you want on the edge in this defense. We have not been to that caliber this cycle. I think the guys are solid that they brought in. I think Boz got some upside. I do think that I would like to see a guy that's a difference maker in that group. And right now we're missing an edge spot. And we have two guys in the middle that I'm not sure are quite on the same level as the guys that we had on the defensive line in the last cycle. So I don't think that this class is bad. I will say that I don't think it's quite up to the previous one. That doesn't mean it's a bad class. What it means is that these are guys who probably may require a little more development before we see them be on the same level as the other guys.
Comment here from Kevin Brown earlier. As of tonight, this class is not top 25. In fact, these additions only increased the 247 class composite ranking from 87.2 to 87.7. We need to be above 89 plus every year to compete for a natty. I mean, I agree. We need to be well higher to compete for a natty, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Yeah. We're moving in the right direction.
Well, and I actually responded to this one in the chat, and I said, we need to worry about winning before we worry about titles. What I will say is this. The last couple guys have bumped us substantially, but there are a few people in this class that I think will push us up. We're not going to hit 89 this class. Number one, I just don't think you have the level of top tier talent. I think we could end up having 4 or 5, maybe even 6 4-stars in this class, but I don't know if the other guys beneath are going to pull up enough in terms of their composite. There are not a lot of guys who have pedigree, and what I mean by pedigree is on a national stage, their names aren't driving attention right now, which means I don't think they're going to see the level of bumps that we would expect from a recruiting, angle. And we saw it happen last cycle. There were numerous guys that I looked at in last year's cycle where I'm like, this guy should be bumped, and it just never happened. And I think that they were better. Nizy Davis was one of them. I thought that he was a 4-star tight end to me. He never got the bump that I was expecting him to get, but he wasn't a guy who was on the national radar, really.
I actually think that this class is full of guys that have upside to be bumped and can be. Like, we look at a guy like
I agree with that. I just don't think it will happen.
Maybe, but it depends on their senior season, right? I mean, we already saw a big jump from DJ Baugh as far as overall ranking goes. He went from an 83 to an 88 or something like that. I think Aiden Reeder is the guy that's going to jump up a lot of people's boards.
Hopkins,
right? Hopkins, obviously. Taylor. I mean, Bardo could end up.
Elam's is 86 right now, which is stupid. Like, I don't think he should be a 4-star, but I do think he should be at least an 88.
88. Yeah, he's an 87 right now. And we talked about Ben Wenzel, who's a guy that I really like, who I think is incredibly undervalued by
he's like an 86.
Recruiting sites. He's an 86, but I think he's got 4-star written all over him. Now he has to show.
I think he has. I think that's fair. I think he could be in that category. I wouldn't go much. I'd probably put him at about somewhere in that 89 composite range, where he's over that range to be a 4-star, but he's not, a guy who's like a 91 or something like that.
The one thing you can't really refute is the athleticism increasing across all of these classes. And that's the one thing that continues to be there. Even if you, in the end, look at the 2026 class and think, you know what, not Fickle's best, I'm upset about it. What you can't say is that it's not more athletic and we don't have players with higher upsides, because we do. To me, it's irrefutable. And I think that's the important thing. Makes it so exciting.
And that's the argument that people don't want to wrap their heads around. They want to look at raw numbers. And it's like, you can't look at everything just through the glass of what shows up on a spreadsheet. Sometimes you have to look with your eyes and say, does player A or player B look more athletic? And that's where you kind of get stuck with it, where you look at, like, there are numerous guys we can look at in the last few cycles from an offensive line standpoint compared to the guys we used to get under the previous staff, and go back and be like, well, These guys are a little bit more heavy-footed and plotter and grinder types under the previous staff. They've gotten a little lighter and more athletic with some of the guys they've gotten in the more recent classes for what we're putting out there now. And that's where I look at that. I'm like, athleticism plays. Like, you can add weight to guys. If the athleticism's there, that's where you have the ability to start going head-to-head against defensive linemen and making them uncomfortable. You don't want athleticism to be the place where you have a shortcoming. You can't make it all up with strength.
I mean, you want to talk about athleticism. Look at Jack Seaver's film and tell me that's not athleticism from a guy who's an 88 3-star tight end. Like, that's not the kind of player that this university got. Now, again, have to show it on the field, right? We know that. We see that. We're going to do all kinds of previews coming into that. Anything else, Justin, on the 2026 class? Any other thoughts on where things stand right now? Any other comments about how things look there?
Yeah, I think we're going to probably see. I mean, we're at 15 now. I think there's people talking about 18 overall. I think if we end up having a solid season and things start heading in the right direction, I think they might be able to get to 20. It will be interesting, but I think some players, with everything that's going on in the space of NIL and everything else, I think this is going to be a really awkward cycle where there's going to be some people that pop up free and stuff like that again. And I just won't be shocked if there's a lot of churn that happens within the recruiting space because guys end up finding out that they're not going to get deals that they were expecting to get or whatever ends up happening with all this.
Let's get into our next topic, Justin. And this is something that it happened almost 10 days ago. It's not something that it's recent. So you probably are all like wondering, why are these guys talking about it now? It's because I was in Alaska and it's something I really want to talk about. It's something I feel very strongly about. And I wanted to kind of touch on it today. So as most of you've all surely heard, the University of Wisconsin is suing Miami for tampering charges against the situation with what happened with Xavier Lucas. Now, what we know is that Xavier Lucas had a contract that was contingent, sort of, from what we've heard about on the settlement, right? The actual NCAA settlement that has now been put into effect that allows schools to pay players. So there was a contingent sort of contract in place that said, okay, once this gets done, and even if it doesn't, there was language in there for that as well, that he committed to play for this season, and allegedly money was moved, but that we don't know. And then Miami, of course, talked to him. Next thing you know, after signing the contract, he says, "I'm headed to Miami." The rest we've talked about. From the very beginning, Justin, from the very first time we talked about this, I was on record as saying, I think this is going to be a big deal. I think this is going to end up becoming a national story that I think really will change some things for college football. And I'll tell you this, when I saw that news, I was extremely happy. I texted both of you from wherever I had service right away and said, I absolutely love this, and here's why I love it. And there's a lot of layers to this, so I'm just going to kind of give you my overall take. First and foremost, it's Wisconsin standing up for itself. And in this day and age, and the NCAA losing out of it, the power they have, and the NIL, and everyone just kind of doing whatever they want in this crazy world right now of NIL and transfer portal nonsense, I'm perfectly happy with my school standing up and saying, no. Like, we're not going to do this. Look, we just had recent NCAA violations that we had to take it on the chin for, and whatever happened, obviously it's light, but it is what it is. You're accountable for what happens. And Miami is not exactly the pinnacle of, a clean program. Like, they've had a long history of issues. And whether it's Miami or anyone else, what Wisconsin is doing is saying, we're not going to let you just tamper with it. There was a contract here. And I'm all about players getting paid, but I do think there need to be guardrails. I've said this before. I'm not going to go into that right now, but we've got to have that. So this is a way that Wisconsin can actually help establish that a little bit and kind of put a line in the sand and say, if we're going to have this kind of a contract, you can't tamper with our player. Now, the other layer of it is they didn't sue Xavier Lucas. They're not going after Xavier Lucas, at least not yet. I like this as well. We talked a lot about this, whether or not they should go after Lucas, whether or not they should go after the school. They're basically going after him without going after him because they're going after Miami. And that's going to help us in the world of recruiting. We don't need 17 and 18-year-olds to say, oh, they're just going to sue their players. Like, ultimately, if there was a contract and the terms of that deal were broken, then there has to be someone has to pay something. Mm-hmm. But go after the school that actually facilitated it. Go after the school that actually said, hey, Why don't you just come here? Don't worry about that contract that you signed in Wisconsin. That means nothing. Bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. It absolutely means something. And you can't just get up and leave. So I'm happy for that. I'm happy that we're going to be a trendsetter. I'm happy that we're going to be the squeaky wheel that says, you know what? You can't actually just do this if this is going to work. We all love college sports. And we're obviously, we do a podcast about it. We have all these listeners that listen to it. Like, we love college sports, but the system is broken. And the only way it's not going to get broken, the way it's going to get unbroken, and there's actually going to be things put in place, is if someone stands up and says, hey, this is not right. You can't just do whatever you want to do. There are ramifications for signing a contract. There are ramifications for doing things, and you have to do things the right way. I'm not saying Wisconsin's perfect, but what I am saying is that something in this sport needs to change. And the minute that the Xavier Lucas thing happened, and we heard that there was an issue, that Wisconsin wasn't going to enter him in the portal and all these things, I am extremely proud. It may not work. And maybe it's not a lawsuit that we win, although I'm pretty sure that we will, hopefully. I mean, I think Wisconsin's good. They know what chips they have. They know what they're putting out there. But at the end of the day, it's our school standing up for itself. And let me tell you one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to you. I'm sorry I've been rambling. Is that this is going to have a positive influence on recruiting, in my opinion, because there are a lot of players, recruits, and parents of these recruits that are going to see what Wisconsin's doing in this crazy world of everyone doing whatever the F they want, is to say, you know what, we're going to go with the school that's actually going to hold people to what they do. That's going to send a message that we're in it for somewhat of the right reasons. Obviously we're all in it for money. That's obviously what the school's doing. But at the end of the day, like, this is important because the future of college football matters. Whether it's going to end up being pro and semi-pro and all these things, like, there has to be ramifications and rules. And it's super important to me. And I'm extremely proud that Wisconsin did this. Sorry, Justin, I've been rambling for like seemingly forever. What are some of your thoughts on what went down?
Well, I mean, I feel the same way. I think the biggest frustration for everyone that's in the current college football space is that we want to see players stick with schools longer. And we want to see some type of rules put in place where you don't feel like teams can just come in the night and steal guys off your roster. Because that's how it feels like the current climate is of college football. Nobody really truly has an issue with players wanting to leave or move. But if you're going to sign a deal, and if it's a multi-year deal to stay with a school, then I think you need to honor that. And I think that is reasonable. I think it's also reasonable to put some other language in there or whatever to say, hey, you're not going to go to this whatever place. You know, I don't care how they want to do it, but I think there needs to be something in there so we can make this beneficial to both sides. Because right now the schools are getting screwed. And it's really hard. Like, I give credit to all of these coaching staffs that are out there right now trying to work their way through this and keep their roster in like one place. It's got to be an absolute nightmare. Logistically speaking, you're sitting there trying to plan out what your roster is going to be for, you know, the fall, and you go into spring practice. And if some guy doesn't feel like he's making enough headway in spring practice, he leaves, and now you're too deep goes out the window. Like, this is a problem. And I think that's one of the other things that they were talking about with this is just going to one transfer cycle again. I think that should happen. Like, if you want to put it in the spring, put it in the spring. That's fine. I don't care, but just make it only once so that we can get a grasp of what's going on. But I do think that that's tough. After the spring, I think it's really hard for a staff to be like, all right, we've kind of got an idea where we're at. And then suddenly I've got somebody who you're expecting to be a focal point or whatever part of your group jump out the window, and it's like, well, now we don't really have a chance to train somebody up to be ready.
There are literally no other sports that allow sports where players get paid, where you're allowed to just leave in the middle. I mean, come on, like, there's got to be something here. And yes, obviously we've talked about that ad nauseum about how we need to have contracts, but I'm really, really happy that we didn't let this go.
I do think there's a loophole that needs to happen here too, because I was listening to a podcast that was talking about the whole Xavier Lucas thing and how he actually ended up leaving and getting into Miami. Was they can't stop a kid from effectively leaving. I think what should be put into play with that is, I think in my opinion, at least, if a kid chooses to leave outside of the transfer portal and enroll in another school, I think you should restrict them from being able to receive NIL then, because you're circumventing the system. If you want to work within the system, you want to receive the benefits of it, you need to follow the guidelines that are required in order to have that available to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're going to play games with stuff like that, where you'd be like, well, they told me no, so I'm just going to circumvent the system, then I think you need to stick it to those people and be like, you broke the rules. We're not going to let you have the benefits.
Yeah, and there's a comment here about the pendulum swinging. It's going to be back and forth, and Mr. October says that's definitely going to happen. It's going to kind of go back and forth, and we're going to kind of find the level and find out what works. But we could have let this go, and I'm glad we didn't. And you know, I know that people listen. Someone from Miami is going to say this and say, "Oh, geez, this guy's just a total homer." Like, listen, all I can tell you is this: there was something signed. It's not like it's kind of out there now at this point. Like something was signed that says, I'm going to play at the University of Wisconsin, and then here's the money I'm going to receive. Frankly, whether
he received money.
When frankly, and whether it was or not, because we don't know that for a fact. I mean, we think so. And
well, I believe it's part of the lawsuit saying that he received money from the what do you
VC Connect Varsity Collective or whatever. But yeah, you're right.
Yes.
And that, like, but either way, even if it wasn't, there was still something signed that said he's going to play there, and then he left. Now, again, I'm happy that we're going after the school and not him, because, like, he's a kid. I understand that. There's certainly things that have to be, you know, someone put a comment earlier about him facing suspension. I think maybe Tyler said that. But I think that this is an example. This is how it's going to start, to where now every single player, when they sign one of those deals, is going to be like, wait a second. I'm not like, I need to think twice before I go, you know, on the next thing, or you know, figure out what I'm going to do. And like, I know the Miami people. I'm sure that they're all going to watch this, and no one's going to watch this from Miami. Maybe they do, but if they do, they're going to think I'm crazy, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm happy that we did it, and I think it's really, really important that precedent gets set, because, you know, someone's got to do it. And if it's going to be us, then fine by me, right? I'm happy that it's us.
Yeah, I'll go out here and I'll inflame the Miami fans.
There we go.
Some of you guys talk about it. Listen, when it comes to it, they're effectively on the same tier as Penn State fans. Like, they are as ignorant and stupid with their logic that they want to use towards stuff because it benefits them. It's just a bunch of jackasses sitting there talking about they're just mad because we screwed them over because we did what was technically considered illegal, but everybody does it, so we should be able to just do it. You guys wouldn't be competitive if you weren't screwing everybody else over. That's just the matter. What I mean, you still can't get yourself to the end of the playoff, even when you do buy a roster that's supposed to get there. But
yeah, listen, you want to get Justin heated up. You get him talking about Penn State. He doesn't like Penn State. Look, and I know that what people, another comment I'm going to get is, well, Wisconsin's tampered too. Tampering happens everywhere. You're right. You're right. Tampering does happen everywhere. But the difference is the contract was signed. That is what's leading to this. We're going after Miami for tampering because Xavier Lucas signed a contract. I understand that the logic doesn't work there, because you'd say go after Lucas, but I think this is the smarter decision. But that's the reason. It's not that, you know, oh, well, someone's talking to our players. We know that happens. We're doing it. Everyone's doing it. People are doing it right now. Other players that have entered the transfer portal were tampered with. The reason Xavier Lucas is the focus of attention is because, yes, he was a star, and because he's going to be a star, but also because he signed something, because we worked hard to keep him. We offered him money to keep him, and maybe allegedly paid money to keep him. This is why this is a big deal. And I know there has to be guardrails put in place, and I'm really happy that we did this. Thanks for all the people that are watching us. We've got over 300 of you watching us live. Thank you so much for that. And if you joined us late, we talked about Jayden Pettit. We talked about Amari Latimer and their commits, which has been massive for this class. We're going to be back again to talk about Alabama. Know Your Foes coming out this week. Sorry again for missing it last week. The trip kind of screwed everything up. It will be released on Wednesday, and then Maryland the week after that. Justin, I feel like I've calmed down.
One more thing I want to throw into this is, if we somehow win this case, there are other schools that I can guarantee you are lining up to come after Miami. I know Baylor was a school that had them do something similar to them. It would not shock me to see other schools come after them if we find a way to win this. Which good. If they end up being the poster child for why other tampering rules need to be put into place, I think that'd be amazing. I think it's a big enough name school, and I think that they have long history of behaving badly. Nevin Shapiro, I'm talking about you, that says that this is a school that needs to be held accountable for the BS that they pull. It's kind of shocking. The ACC is really bad at cheating because they continuously get caught. Them, North Carolina with their whole school thing. Like, you guys are really bad at kind of keeping this stuff under the table. The SEC schools don't seem to be getting caught for it.
It's good to be in one of the have conferences, right? The Big Ten and the SEC for sure. Gregor 715 says UW shows they have standards by doing this. It should be met with some respect. And you know what? It should be, and it is, I think. And kudos to the Big Ten for backing Wisconsin up on this. Like, they didn't have to come out and say what they did. They don't have to be heavily involved. They could just say, Wisconsin's doing their own thing. No, the Big Ten showing support of what Wisconsin's doing. And it's something that I think is really great. Justin, anything else you want to hit on before we close the show today?
Nope, I think that about does it. It was good to have you back on here. We got out some energy and some venom.
Yeah, there's definitely some venom. I'll tell you what, I've been saving that up all week. I'm like, I just want to come on a podcast and talk about this thing with Miami, because it's really been bugging me. But listen, big week for us. I know there's a lot of trepidation about the 2026 class. This was a good week. Has to keep going. We're going to need to hit on some more targets. We're going to need to fill out this class. But look at the 24, 25, 26 classes, and you're seeing a really good trend in the right direction. It all starts with football, though, this fall. This is when it matters the most. The Know Your Foe series continues this week with Alabama, and we'll go all the way through the rest of the season. And we're going to really be turning our focus attention to the football season now. We're 2 months away, Justin, 2 months away from kicking off in Madison. With that, thank you all for joining us. Over 300 of you watching live. Thank you for joining us. If you're listening to on a podcast, leave a review if you can. Give us some feedback on the show. Comments are always welcome. We really appreciate everything that everyone does for the success of the show. With that, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.